I never thought it would happen to me. You know that feeling when you believe you have everything figured out? When your circle feels solid, your relationships feel real, and your world seems unshakable. That was me 3 months ago. I was living in what I thought was my perfectly crafted reality, surrounded by people I trusted with my life. Sarah had been my best friend since college. We shared everything: dreams, fears, late-night conversations about our futures, and yes, even our deepest insecurities about relationships. When I started dating Marcus, she was the first person I called. She squealed with excitement, asked me a million questions, and promised to be my wingwoman through it all. "This is it," she said. "You two are perfect together." For 8 months, everything was exactly that, perfect. Marcus and I complemented each other in ways I never knew were possible. He was ambitious where I was creative, logical where I was emotional, steady where I was spontaneous. Our friend group embraced him immediately. Weekend gatherings at my apartment became the norm. Game nights, movie marathons, birthday celebrations. Marcus fit in seamlessly, like he had always been part of our tight-knit circle. But there were small things I should have noticed. The way Sarah's eyes lingered on him just a second too long when she thought I wasn't looking. How she always managed to sit next to him during our group outings. The inside jokes that seemed to develop between them, jokes I wasn't part of. The way she would text him directly instead of going through me, claiming it was about surprise plans for my birthday or organizing group events. I dismissed it all as paranoia. Sarah was my best friend. Marcus was devoted to me. I was being ridiculous, letting my past trust issues cloud my judgment. After all, I had been burned before in previous relationships, and I had promised myself I wouldn't let that baggage affect this beautiful thing I had with Marcus. The first real crack in my perfect world came on a Thursday evening in February. I had planned a surprise dinner for Marcus to celebrate his promotion at work. I spent the entire afternoon cooking his favorite meal, setting candles around my apartment, and even bought that expensive wine he had mentioned loving months ago. I was so excited to see his face when he walked through the door. But he never showed up. When Marcus didn't show up that Thursday night, I sat in my candlelit apartment for 3 hours, watching the pasta get cold and the wax drip onto my dining table. I called him 6 times. Texted him a dozen messages. Nothing. Radio silence. By midnight, I was pacing my living room, torn between worry that something terrible had happened and a growing suspicion that something else entirely was going on. At 1:47 a.m. he finally texted back. "Sorry, emergency at work. Had to handle a crisis. Rain check." Something felt off. Marcus was meticulous about communication. In 8 months together he had never just disappeared like this. Even during his busiest days he would send quick updates, emoji responses, something to let me know he was thinking of me. This cold, formal response felt like it came from a stranger. The next morning, I decided to stop by his office with coffee and pastries, my way of showing support after what I assumed had been a stressful work emergency. But when I walked into his building, Janet from reception looked confused. "Emergency," she repeated when I mentioned it. "Marcus left at 5:30 yesterday, same as always. Said he had dinner plans." My stomach dropped. I felt the world tilt slightly on its axis, that nauseating sensation when you realize something you believe to be true is actually a lie. I mumbled some excuse to Janet and practically ran out of the building, my mind racing with possibilities I didn't want to consider. I called Sarah immediately. She had always been my voice of reason, the one who could talk me through my spiraling thoughts and help me see situations clearly. But when I explained what had happened, her response was different. Distant. She seemed distracted, giving me short answers and platitudes. "I'm sure there's an explanation," she kept saying. "Don't jump to conclusions." That weekend, our usual group gathering felt strange. Marcus was overly attentive, almost performatively so, bringing me drinks, holding my hand, making grand gestures that felt forced. "And Sarah?" She barely looked at me. When she did speak, it was to defend Marcus if anyone even jokingly teased him about anything. It was subtle, but I noticed. I always notice everything when something feels wrong. Then came the night that changed everything. I had gone to bed early, claiming a headache, but really I just needed space to think. Around midnight, I realized I had left my phone charger in the living room. As I tiptoed out to get it, I heard voices on the patio. Low, intimate whispers that made my blood run cold. Through the sliding glass door I saw them. Marcus and Sarah standing closer than friends should stand, her hand on his chest, his fingers brushing her hair away from her face. And then they kissed. Not a friendly peck, not an accidental moment. A real kiss, full of passion and familiarity that spoke of something that had been building for much longer than just that night. I stood there in my darkened living room, watching my entire world implode through a pane of glass. The kiss lasted maybe 10 seconds, but those 10 seconds contained the destruction of everything I thought I knew about my life. When they finally broke apart, I saw Sarah glance toward the house nervously, and I quickly ducked behind the curtain, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it from outside. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction, every moment, every seemingly innocent exchange between them over the past 8 months. How long had this been going on? Had they been laughing at me behind my back? Had every group gathering, every shared moment, every time I had confided in Sarah about my relationship been feeding into their secret? The next morning I waited. I watched Marcus make coffee in my kitchen, humming softly like he did every Sunday morning, acting like nothing had happened. I watched him butter his toast, check his phone, and ask me about my plans for the day. The normalcy of it all felt surreal, like I was living in some twisted alternate reality where betrayal could exist alongside morning routines. I wanted to confront them immediately. My instinct was to explode, to scream, to throw his coffee mug against the wall and demand answers. But something held me back. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was strategic thinking, or maybe it was the part of me that still hoped I had misunderstood what I had seen. So instead I played along. I smiled, kissed him goodbye when he left for his morning run, and told him I loved him just like I had every other Sunday for months. But I wasn't idle. While Marcus was out running, I did something I never thought I would do. I went through his phone. I felt disgusting doing it, violating his privacy, but I needed to know the truth. I needed to understand the scope of what was happening to my life. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. Months of messages between Marcus and Sarah. Intimate conversations that started innocent enough but quickly evolved into something much more. I can't stop thinking about you. This is wrong, but I've never felt anything like this. She doesn't need to know. When can we be alone again? They had been meeting in secret for 3 months. 3 months of lies, of looking me in the eye while living a completely different reality behind my back. The emergency at work that Thursday? He had been with Sarah. They had gone to that new restaurant downtown, the one I had been wanting to try with him. She had posted a photo of her meal on social media that night. I remember seeing it and thinking how good the food looked. Reading their messages felt like being slowly poisoned. Each conversation revealed another layer of deception, another moment when they had chosen to betray me. But the worst part wasn't just the affair, it was how they talked about me. Marcus complained about my neediness, my emotional ups and downs. Sarah agreed, adding her own observations about my trust issues, and how I was probably too insecure for a real relationship anyway. They were planning to tell me soon, they said. After Sarah's birthday party next weekend. They would let me down easy, and then finally be together openly. I was expendable. I was the obstacle standing between them and their happiness. Sarah's birthday party arrived faster than I wanted it to. For a week I had been living in this strange limbo, knowing the truth but pretending ignorance. I watched Marcus kiss me goodbye each morning, knowing his lips had been on my best friend's. I listened to Sarah plan her party over the phone, knowing she was planning to destroy my life at the same celebration. The party was at Sarah's apartment, the same place where we had celebrated so many milestones together over the years. As I walked into that familiar space, carrying the expensive perfume I had bought her as a gift, I felt like I was entering my own execution. The decorations were beautiful, the music was perfect, and everyone was laughing and drinking as if this was just another normal celebration. I made a decision that night. If they were going to humiliate me, I wasn't going down without a fight. I wasn't going to be the pathetic girl who got blindsided by her boyfriend and best friend. I was going to control the narrative. Halfway through the party, when everyone was sufficiently drunk and relaxed, I asked for everyone's attention. I stood up, raised my glass, and gave what everyone thought was going to be a touching birthday toast to Sarah. I talked about our friendship, our history, how much she meant to me. I saw her face soften, maybe feeling guilty about what she was planning to do to me. Then I shifted gears. Sarah has always been someone who goes after what she wants, I continued, my voice steady and clear. She's never been afraid to take risks, to pursue her desires, even when those desires belong to someone else. The room started to feel the shift in energy. A few people exchanged glances. In fact, she's been pursuing something that belongs to me for the past 3 months. I pulled out my phone and connected it to her Bluetooth speaker. I thought for her birthday I should give her what she really wants. I played their voice messages. Not the explicit ones, I'm not cruel, but enough of their intimate conversations for everyone to understand exactly what had been happening. Sarah's face went white. Marcus looked like he might be sick. The room fell into the kind of silence that feels deafening. "Happy birthday, Sarah," I said, setting down my wine glass. "And congratulations on finally getting what you wanted." I walked out of that apartment with my head held high, leaving behind not just Marcus and Sarah, but the entire friend group that had been the foundation of my social life for years. I knew there would be consequences. I knew I had just burned every bridge I had built. But in that moment I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Powerful. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Within days the story had spread through our entire social circle, but not in the way I had expected. I thought exposing them would vindicate me. I thought our friends would rally around me, outraged by the betrayal they had witnessed. I thought justice would feel satisfying. I was wrong on all counts. Instead, I became the villain of my own story. Sarah and Marcus spun the narrative beautifully. They were two people who had fallen in love despite trying to fight it. And I was the vindictive ex who couldn't handle being rejected with grace. They painted themselves as star-crossed lovers who had tried to do the right thing, and me as an unstable woman who had invaded their privacy and publicly humiliated them out of spite. Our friend group bought it completely. Within a week I found myself completely ostracized. Group chats went silent when I was added. Invitations stopped coming. When I ran into people from our circle, conversations became awkward and brief. Jessica, who had been at every major event in my life for 3 years, actually crossed the street to avoid talking to me. "You went too far," was the common sentiment. "They didn't handle it perfectly, but what you did was cruel." I spent 2 months in a depression unlike anything I had ever experienced. I had lost my boyfriend, my best friend, and my entire social foundation in one devastating blow. There were days I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't stop replaying that night, wondering if I should have handled things differently. Maybe I should have just let them break up with me quietly. Maybe public humiliation really had been too harsh. But something shifted during those dark weeks. Slowly, I began to see the situation with new clarity. I started therapy, and my therapist asked me a question that changed everything. If these people could watch you get betrayed and then blame you for how you reacted to that betrayal, were they really your friends to begin with? The answer was obvious, but I had been too hurt to see it. Real friends don't side with the people who betray you. Real friends don't make excuses for deception and lies. Real friends don't abandon you because you didn't handle being victimized with perfect grace. I realized I hadn't lost my friends. I had discovered that these people were never truly my friends at all. They were social acquaintances who were comfortable with me as long as I played a specific role in their lives, but they weren't willing to stand by me when things got messy. Marcus and Sarah's relationship imploded within 4 months, just as I was beginning to rebuild my life. Apparently, relationships built on deception and shared guilt don't have strong foundations. Who knew? By then, I had started making new friends, real ones who loved my authenticity and didn't expect me to be perfect or convenient. The most surprising thing happened 6 months after the party. Sarah called me, crying, wanting to apologize and get our friendship back. She was lonely, she said. She missed our connection. She realized she had made a terrible mistake. I listened to her sob through her apologies and I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no desire for revenge or reconciliation. Just complete indifference toward someone who had once been the most important person in my life. "I forgive you," I told her, and I meant it. "But I don't need you anymore." That was my real victory. Not the dramatic confrontation at her party, not watching their relationship fall apart, but reaching a place where their opinions and their presence simply didn't matter to me anymore. I had built a new life with people who valued loyalty, honesty, and authenticity. Sometimes the greatest revenge is just living well without the people who betrayed you. To support the channel, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much.